Welcome everyone. I appreciate you coming. I think we have a lot of really interesting things to talk about today. First up, I'm Paula Aducci, and I run a creative agency for Science Types. We specialize in creating impactful brands for early stage life science groups. So given my experience with businesses like yours, I have a couple of ideas about why you might be watching this webinar. You're a seed stage company, you're trying to be taken seriously. You need funding, investors, partners, something like that to advance your company. You might have limited funds, and COVID is making everything harder now that we can't do anything in person. So by the end of this webinar, here's what I want you to take away. First, how getting noticed is the critical piece in advancing your business. Second, how to get people to remember you and care about what you're doing. And three, how things have changed as a result of COVID and what you need to do now. You'll also have your own sense of noticeability, and I'll give you a clear step-by-step process to help you go from where you are now to really standing out. Stick around till the end because I've got some exciting news and some important next steps that'll help. So let's get started. Who here knows what an elevator pitch is? You heard mine earlier. I'm Paula Aducci, and I run a creative agency for life science and Science Types. We specialize in creating impactful brands for early stage life science groups. It's simple, it's to the point, and it's understandable. Now, what would you think if I said it like this? I'm Paula Aducci, co-founder and principal of Aducci Studios, a creative agency dedicated to Science Types from seed stage to IPO and beyond, bringing together a sophisticated team with backgrounds in product portfolio strategy development, product lifecycle marketing, medical writing, medical illustration, brand development, investor presentations, educational and trading modules. As a designer and scientific illustrator with over 20 years experience, I often function as the scientific liaison to life science companies. My aim is to pair artistry and subject matter expertise to serve the sciences. I earned a bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry from Purdue University and a master's degree in biomedical visualization from the University of Illinois at Chicago. That's a mouthful. And if we were in person, you would probably be backing up pretty darn quickly right about now. So when did you stop listening to what I had to say there? After the first sentence? It's just too much, and there's way too much in this context. So even if it's all true and really relevant for me, it's not right for this situation. If that pitch was a slide, it might look like that. So I'll bet most of you have seen a slide that looks like this. Maybe some of you even have a slide that looks like this. It's a classic example of overload. It's too much information and it's told in the wrong way. So you see a slide like this and a couple of things are going on. Visually, there's really nowhere to focus. There's colors and fonts and graphics. It's everything all over. And the story, well, there's so much content, there's no idea for your audience to know what's important, let alone what they should do with it. The most effective way to get your point across is really twofold. It starts with what you look like, and it continues with your story and who you're telling it to. You know, in our overly saturated world, we see so many things everywhere we look. Magazines, billboards, social media. It's a visual feast. Or it's an endless parade of mediocrity. I mean, how often do you just flip through, humdrum, boring, the same thing over and over, and then you see something and you say, wow, that's different. That is exciting. And that is the reaction that you need. It's that wow factor. Now, there are thousands of scientists out there. They've all got great ideas, but they all have to pitch to the same kind of group of people. So how do you stand out from all of those others? Well, the easiest way to do it is with your visuals. And I'm not just talking about having a shiny new logo. I mean, having a really great logo is important, don't get me wrong, but you can't show up with a logo and go, hey, it's good enough, because it really isn't good enough. Your logo needs to be your ambassador. It needs to say something about your science or your product, or at least be interesting, but it can't stand alone. You can have the best logo in the world, but you show up with a slide like that, you probably lost some credibility and you might have lost your audience. Your logo, it's a starting point, but it's your brand package that's really important. And by brand package, I mean the way you package yourself up. Nope, your logo is not your brand. See the difference? The logo on the left is nice, and it might even say a little bit about your company, but it's one word. It's not a whole conversation. I mean, you see the Coca-Cola logo, everybody knows the Coca-Cola logo, but they also know the colors, the visuals, the feeling, those bubbles, all of that combines to be their brand. You don't even need to see their logo. You know it's Coca-Cola simply by all those materials. And that's what I'm talking about with the brand. It's the experience. The brand is the sum total of your materials. It's the public's perception of your company, the visual representation that speaks for you. It starts with your logo and a color scheme, and you'd be surprised at how much difference a good color can make. It comes through on that card that you hand out, and it speaks clearly on your website. But it's also the way you dress and the way you present your business. It's your visual personality. Is it technical? Is it personal? Is it refined? That depends on your audience. The visual picture you paint needs to match what your audience expects. But most importantly, all those elements need to work together. Nothing says unprofessional more than a mishmash of colors and fonts and photos and icons. So the industry agrees. What you look like matters. Now think about this. 94% of first impressions are design driven. You going to get that chance to impress? 75% of people will judge a company based solely on design. And it's just design. That's not the content. And it spans both digital and printed media. And 89% of people are going to go to a website to make a decision. So what happens if they go to a website and they find a huge mess? So let me put it this way. Have you ever been on a first date? Did what they look like matter? I know it's kind of silly, and intellectually, it really shouldn't be the case, but we're human animals and first impressions really do matter. So sometimes you really need to get that first impression. You need those initial moments to get noticed and to get remembered. Even the most enlightened minds are going to make these quick decisions. I recently went to an event where entrepreneurs were giving a pitch. They had 10 to 15 minutes on stage with a teleprompter and slides, and they had a reception afterwards where they could interact with the media and the investors. It was a really great opportunity to see the good and the bad, and yeah, there was some ugly. So right away, certain presentations were standing out. They were nicely formatted, they had clean slides, engaging images, names were clearly visible, colors aligned. It was a cohesive brand. And then there were the not so great ones. White text slides, black text, a whole bunch of stuff crowded together. So much content, there was no way for me to follow it. And I couldn't tell what the story was. There were no names. There was nothing for me to remember, and I quickly forgot everything. There was nothing there to stimulate me. So I tried really hard after the presentation ended to remember, but it was like trying to capture smoke, and that is not the impression that you want to leave. So not surprisingly, at the reception, really similar was there. Some groups had all of their banners, clear messaging, matching graphics, backdrops, cards, and handouts, everything was coordinated, and I was able to tell at a glance what was going on. It was all intended to draw the eye and invite the conversation, and I wanted to go over and find out more. And then there were the groups that were at their tables, nothing but a logo on a plain backdrop behind them, a couple of lonely business cards sitting on the table. I mean, they must have thought it was good enough, but there was nothing there to tell me what they were doing. There was no visuals, no tagline, no summary or handouts that would make me want to go over and learn more. What I got from that was they didn't have a story. And they must have had a great concept or they wouldn't have been there, but it must have been in their heads, not where I could see it. So which group are you going to want to talk to? Which group do you think those investors are going to want to talk to? But it's really not enough just to look good. You have to have the right story for your audience as well. You might have all the best materials organized and ready to go, but that's just part of what you need. You need to know your audience and what they need to hear. It might be some basic content, but it has to be tailored to the audience that you're speaking to. Now, I want to kind of show you a fun example of how the same story can be told visually. We've all heard the story of Rapunzel, and you might have seen the movie Tangled. So here are a couple of quick trailers that tell the same story, but in a really different way. The first one is going to show the story as a trailer, but in a thriller style, so lots of action.
The outside world is filled with horrible, selfish people. You must stay here where you're safe. Don't ever ask to leave this tower again. Please, no! Our secret will die within.
The next one, romantic comedy.
This is the story of Rapunzel. And it starts with a girl. But I know what the big question is. Did Rapunzel and I ever get married? Well, no.
A long time ago.
Mother, there's something I want to tell you.
I met someone. I love you very much, dear. You know what I see? I see a strong, confident, beautiful young lady.
Okay, so it looks like some of you may not be able to see the video, so I'm going to skip through, but the point is that the way you tell the story means that you're going to see something really different. So let's talk about a practical example now. Let's talk about a website homepage. Now, we've all seen websites where you show up and, oh my God, there's 100 pictures and miles of text, and what the heck am I supposed to be looking at? And is this what I'm supposed to be getting a good idea of what they're doing? And I don't even know where I should look first or what the point of the page is. I mean, I know this is kind of an extreme example, but do you really want to stay on this page? How much time are you spending on a website, and what is compelling you to look around or just run away? You only get seconds to hold a viewer. A truly effective homepage keeps the content simple and understandable. It speaks to the intended audience right away and entices them to stay and look around and learn more. But if it doesn't, your viewers are gone. If it says too much or not enough, the viewer gets lost, or worse, they get bored. The visuals have to be part of your brand so it all goes together. Colors, photos, logos, everything matches up with everything they've ever seen of yours, no matter where they've seen it. On a website, at the trade shows, on a publication, handouts, wherever. So let's go back to that event where the groups were presenting, and let's look at it from a storytelling perspective. Those great visuals that you've developed are going to get them to look up from their phone, but now you have to get them to remember what you're saying, and you have to get them to care. Let's start with a core message. This is important because why should the audience care? What do you want them to do about it? Let them know up front, and let them know in clear, simple languages so that they can be thinking about that as you go into more detail. And keep those details under control and understandable. Remember this slide? You know, I talk to lots of scientists about why their slides are so crowded, and I get the same responses over and over. Hey, if I don't put all that stuff on my slide, then nobody's going to know I'm the expert. Or maybe the investors are looking for something specific and I don't know what it is, so I have to put everything on the slides just in case, so that I have to make sure everything's on there. But there's no way anyone can grasp everything on that screen. It's too much, and there's no way it's connecting. I mean, you put up something like that, it might as well look like this. your audience is gone. What you want to do is you want to lead your audience through the story. Let them take that journey with you. Show the passion. You started your business for a reason. Let them know why. Allow them into your world, but don't drown them with all your information. Of course, you know everything there is to know on your subject, and it's all important and it's all relevant, but it may not be connecting with your audience. So now that you've got all this information and you got your visuals ready and your story straight and you're feeling really confident about yourself, now we've got a new challenge. Suddenly, there are no more networking events. There are no more conferences. You can't go to one-on-one meetings. Now what are we going to do? All that charisma you worked up, it has an entirely different look when you're on the screen. So now more than ever, the brand has to be clear and it has to be strong. It's the thing that people are seeing right up front. And here's that part where I talked about how you present yourself becomes a really important part of your brand. Since your personality doesn't really present itself exactly the same as if you were on screen, you have to develop the presentations more, both in your visuals and in how you're presenting yourself. Now, you've all probably seen videos where they talk about lighting, make sure that you have, plenty of lighting and it's nice and even. I mean, who really wants to work with that person that's kind of slouched on the couch in the dark, looks a little shady? And I'm sure we've also talked about having your background be interesting, something not a little bit too crowded. Maybe if you're in a small room in your bedroom, might want to make that bed, maybe put that basket of laundry away. And of course, how to position your camera, because I would bet, all of you, like when we first did, you turned on your camera and you went, oh my God, do I really have 3 chins? So, there's a lot of different techniques, and we can go over those things if you want to later. There's a lot of different techniques for presenting yourself on screen that are different than when you're presenting yourself in person. You may not be face to face, but that just means your visuals are even more important. What are they seeing on the screen? And what are you going to send them after? Are they going to be able to quickly understand all of that? Now is the time to really let your brand be speaking for you. And this means in your online meetings, in your emails, and when you're learning to link together on LinkedIn. But don't worry about it. We've thought of a way to help you with this, and I'll talk to you about it in just a little bit. So the bottom line is, whether you're online or in person, the audience wants to know, what are you trying to tell me? Why is that significant? And what do you want me to do? First and foremost, keep your presentation simple and on point, and always have your specific target audience in mind. Now, most of you guys are going to be speaking to investors, and they need to be made to feel like they want to join you in your passion, join you in your quest. But they don't want to be made to feel like they can't understand a word you said. I mean, if you're presenting 60 slides in 20 minutes, where's the time for understanding? Where's the time for questions? What you're really saying is, it's more important for me to put all this stuff on my slides to show that I'm the expert. I have to get through all this stuff, and I don't care if you get it. You think you're showing your expertise, but it's just noise. What it says is you're unclear on what you should be saying to the audience. A little bit like throwing the spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. It's not focused. Is that really what you want your audience to come away with? You really want to leave them in the dark? What you want to be is efficient and effective. You want to be their advocate. Understanding your audience and their needs, it'll go a long way to keeping your attention, which gets your message heard. So, you made that connection, you got them to notice you, you spoke to them in a way that makes them understand and makes them care, so now get them to want more. Don't expect that $10 million check after a 10-minute presentation. I mean, someone might just have a check burning a hole in their pocket, but more than likely not. So go ahead, ask for that second meeting, and I'll bet you'll get it because now you're getting noticed. So let's put it together. Great visuals, clear story, powerful brand. It's memorable, it's understandable, it's relatable, and it has a clear call to action. So here's how it looks in the real world. I'm going to give you a couple of case studies of groups that we worked with to achieve a specific goal. The first group, Crux Biomedical, had a great product, a real breakthrough in the medical technology field. It was a vena cava filter that could be implanted and removed through the leg. Now, this is a big deal because traditional vena cava filters will be put in through the leg and removed through the neck. So you can imagine how much traveling inside the body that would be. So as the saying goes, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. But the world wasn't beating a path to their door. And this was because no one knew they existed. They couldn't adequately explain that mousetrap, and the mousetrap a little bit seemed unfinished. So we started with their goal. They wanted to sell the technology, not develop it. So they needed a strong brand package, starting with a logo and basic collateral. But they also needed a slogan that would be catchy and clearly state what their product was all about. The theme we focused on was protection. This little bit of wire was meant to prevent blood clots. And the structure itself was really interesting to look at, so we put it right in the logo, enclosed in a shield. And of course, being a product in blood, red was a natural choice. We crafted the slogan of 3 words to embody the tech: innovation, filtration, protection. Without any other information present, you'd really get a sense of what this product could do. Because we were truly selling the product in fact, but not just in the concept, we featured the innovative design on all their media, boldly enlarging the device so that you could see it everywhere. We kept the messages simple and clear, whether it was on the trade show booths, in a website, handouts, everywhere. Extensive details were saved for in-person meetings. We wanted to spread that message as powerfully and as memorably as possible to as many potential buyers as possible. Every interaction with Crux carried the same bold visuals and story. Even little things like the shirts they wore at shows, the custom bags that delivered their materials to potential buyers, and the dimensional pins that everybody was stopping by to grab. Crux took their brand and story on the road, and thanks to the intensive and cohesive effort, they found a buyer in 3 months. That was a phenomenal result, but it was backed by a strong brand, visual presence, and story. The second story I'm going to tell you also involves a product, but in this case, they had a different kind of challenge. Their product was one that would have to connect 2 very different audiences with very different expectations. Telomere Diagnostics was a molecular testing company, and it was founded by a group of scientists, one of whom was a Nobel Prize winner. So they were really used to talking to other scientists. But now that they were bringing a product to market, it meant they had to learn an entirely new language. So how could we bring enough detail to inform physicians who would prescribe the tests while not boring consumers? And how would we create something that would catch the public's eye without being too trivial for a professional? They needed a brand and a strategy that would straddle the line between these 2 groups. We started with their story. Telomeres is a genetic test that looks at the end caps of chromosomes, the telomeres, to determine the age of a cell. It can give an approximation of how healthy a person is on a cellular level. Through interviews and focus groups, we determined the key attributes for youth, health, happiness, and wellness. We started with the logo for telomeres, focusing on happiness and health. We wanted something friendly, but we also wanted something that would visually represent the shape of the chromosome and its telomere caps. The resulting, somewhat playful character appealed to both groups. We developed a slogan based on those interviews that would appeal to physicians prescribing the test for the patients and also to consumers who were looking for a better measurement of their health. And they both responded to, "Know how well you're aging." This brand promise was reflected in both the test as a diagnostic tool that could promote change, because telomere length is not a static property and it can be affected by lifestyle choices. So here's where we started diverging that story. Materials were developed for consumers, focusing more on the youth and active lifestyle angle, friendly graphics and fonts to support that. The physician pieces were kept a bit more Spartan, fewer graphics and more clinical details that a medical professional would need to back a product. A special launch event was coordinated with the release of the test. Large format graphics were placed at the venue, and the social media campaigns furthered the brand efforts. The event was well attended, and the cohesive visuals and story helped Telliers get noticed and accepted by both groups. The Telliers test rapidly gained acceptance. It's now considered on par with giants like 23andMe and Ancestry.com. It's considered by both physicians and consumers to be a legitimate health evaluation tool, and it's branched into lifestyle choices and even ancestry services. So you can see how potent the combination of visuals and stories is. Now, let's take a moment to see how well you're doing. You may have received the Brand Impact Scorecard ahead of time when you registered for this webinar. Just a couple of questions that you can rank from 1 to 5. It'll give you a quick indicator of where you can improve your own materials. So you start off on the left and you go to the right, 1 through 5. You go through these couple of quick questions and you fill it out, kind of add it up. So how did you do? Anybody getting all 5s? That'd be great. Mostly 1s and 2s, a couple of 3s and 4s. Don't worry. We've got a solution for that, and it all starts with something that happened last year. Last August, we were approached by the UC Davis Venture Catalyst Group to put together a program that would assist seed stage entrepreneurs in presenting their science effectively. They told us this is a major challenge because these companies get stuck and they often have trouble presenting themselves well. The Catalyst program emphasizes the importance of branding, but they haven't really been able to find any resources to help. I mean, most agencies are charging between $15,000 and $25,000 to brand a package a small business, but that's way out of reach for most of these groups. And to make matters worse, now with this COVID reality effectively ending in-person meetings, it's even more challenging. They just can't rely on their personal charisma to win the room. They have to have very sharp, succinct brand presentations for an online meeting. So we went to work and we came up with a program that we call Seedback. It's a toolkit for seed stage entrepreneurs to present themselves professionally in a way that's cost effective. And there isn't anything like it out there. Now, everywhere we go, we hear the same thing. No one's around to help these groups. There's just no money in it. But we really love working with those early stage groups. I mean, they've got passion and they've got fire and it's infectious. So typically, agencies like us would start working with startups that are a little farther downstream, maybe Series A or B, when they've got something in place, but maybe it's not great. So often we'll have to redo or undo a lot of elements. Now, wouldn't it be better if we got started earlier in that brand journey so we didn't have to spend money redoing everything or starting over? So I don't really want to make this into a big sales thing, but we're really excited about this program. The starter pack, as you can see, is our most popular, and it contains the 5 most popular elements that early groups need to get started. And we've worked with enough of you groups to know that it can get a little scary when you're out there and you left the comfort of your incubator, maybe you've left the accelerator, and now you're starting on your own. So we're also starting a special community to give you tools and ongoing guidance that you will need to network, get known, get meetings, and close deals. We'll meet every 2 weeks online and we'll focus on a different topic. You'll meet with other peer entrepreneurs all over the world and get kind of a safety net with continued support, connections, and guidance. We'll talk about how to network, talk about how to connect using LinkedIn, which is really great since nobody can actually meet in person right now. We'll talk about sales and marketing, and you'll get to practice those conversation presentation skills with members. And here's the big thing: positive mindset strategies. Staying positive is a key ingredient to success, and we'll give you tools and practices to use between sessions to keep you positive and moving forward. The branding process is really important to your success. Look at the score you gave yourself on that scorecard. You've got great science, and we don't want yours to be one of the ones that never gets the right attention. We've seen it happen too many times. Now, I know this is a lot, in a really short amount of time. But here's what I want you to remember. In order to succeed, you need to get noticed. It starts with a goal, knowing what you want to accomplish. It's strengthened by your story, which of course is tailored to your specific audience. And it's reinforced with your visuals. All those elements together combine to define your brand. It's that wow moment that we talked about. You want to be the one that's being remembered in the crowd, the one that's getting the second look. You be the one getting that big check. So remember, memorable visuals, understandable story, relatable goal, clear call to action. You put all those elements together and you'll get noticed. And the rest is up to you. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate, and I would love to hear any questions that you may have.